Howdy y'all, welcome to my channel. Today I will be walking you through how I created this card with some swinking and some paper piecing and some marker coloring, and also we added a bit of dewdrops. So set a spell and let's begin. So what we're going to do is take our Anya and we're going to color her, but we're also going to mask her and create a ground floor and a background for her. We're also going to make some clothes for her by fussy cutting these materials. But first, in order to do that, we need to prep this to go into our printer. You see what these prints are on. They are on some scrapbook adhesive that has been cut to 8.5 by 11. But as you can see right here, there's not enough of this print to cover up that section. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our soldering mat and we're going to grab our powder tool and we're going to swipe some powder onto that section right there. This will remove the stickiness from our sheet, at least in that little section. So now what we can do is stick this in our printer and then we can fussy cut it out. So as you can see, we have our Anya printed out onto all these different, well, I'd call them homemade paper, homemade pattern paper, because that's some ink blending, and these are some gel prints. So we're going to use these for her outfit, with the exception of her pants, because we've already printed a couple of Anyas onto these denim fabric remnants. So we're going to use these for her pants and these prints to help us out with the rest of her clothing. But what does that mean we do with Anya? Well, for our little Anya, I'm going to do a fun new technique. It was created by Laurel Beard. She's calling it the swinking technique. And what I have to say about that is this. Swinking is not, I don't know that I would call it swinking because, well, swinking is actually a word that already exists. It's an old English word meaning labor or drudgery. It can also mean to labor, to work hard, to cause, to toil or drudge, to tire or exhaust with labor. And those two definitions were from Webster's Dictionary and yourdictionary.com. Now, what Urban Dictionary has to say about swinking is this. It is when someone or a group of people are very tired or when they are drunk. So, okay, I'm not going to be drunk to create this technique, but you know what I will do? I will, you know what? I don't even know if I consider this labor or drudgery or exhausting, but I would consider this fun. And if you go to Laurel's channel, you'll find out that what she calls swinking is swiping your ink, swinking. So yeah, you guys let me know what you think about this whole swinking thing. So what we're gonna do is first we are going to bring in this stencil. It is by Newton's Nook Designs and it's called Hardwood. Now we're going to place it onto our cardstock piece right here, but first we need to do something. we need to create a mask. So I've printed these Anyas out onto some rock label paper, which you can use for a mask. And it actually comes in an 8.5 by 11 size, which means that it's terrific for running through your printer. So we are just going to fussy cut this Anya out, and then we're going to place our mask over our image on our cardstock piece. So these scissors are terrific for fussy cutting, and I would highly recommend them if that's something that you are considering doing. These are by Fiskars, so yeah. Okay, so here is our mask, and I'm just going to, well, I'm going to actually place our mask onto a microfiber cloth to help make it a little less sticky, because if it's too sticky, when we try to remove it, it may attempt to rip our cardstock piece, and that would not be very nice to have to deal with. So what you do is you just grab your microfiber cloth. You could also totally do this on your clothing if you would rather do it that way. Then you just need to bring in your tool-in-one and use the paper piercing and to help remove your mask from its backing. Okay, so we're just going to rub this on our microfiber cloth. Okay, so now we're going to place her onto the card front. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to place this onto, we're placing this onto our Make Art station. And we're going to mask a bit of the bottom off to create a floor. But the top, we'll use our stencil. So basically all you need to do is butt her up into one of these grid lines and make sure that she's even, and then you can, and now we can place our Post-it removable labeling tape over that, and then you can bring in your magnets for your Make Art station just to hold it in place. But we're not going to do our stenciling over this just yet. We are actually going to take our stencil and we are going to bring in the color Peacock Feathers. We're also going to bring in Forest Green. Now, we're going to do this because we want to make this piece look like some distressed, formerly painted shiplap. So, here's the thing. When I swink, take your ink pad. It can be any size ink pad. It could be a larger ink pad or a smaller ink pad. I'm just going with smaller today. And what you do is you swipe some ink over your stencil or cardstock or whatever. But as you can, I don't know if you can see, let me get some paper to help you see a little better. So we're going to swink some ink over our stencil, and you can see what it looks like on the printer sheet right here, but when when I look at the area where the stencil was, it didn't really do much. It did a little bit, but that's why I'm doing it on the soldering mat, because I don't necessarily want to get it all over the place. So yeah, because what we're going to have to do for our swinking is a little different. So we're going to bring in the forest moss because I want to finish up the swinking on our stencil. Okay, so, and you can go back over it with the peacock feather, and now we're going to bring in our water bottle and we're going to spritz onto our stencil. That way we have something that will actually stick to our cardstock so that we can create our cool looking shiplap piece. Now we're going to bring our Make Art Station back in. So here's our Make Art Station and our little Anya, and she's got a mask over her, remember. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this stencil that we've swinked over and we've spritzed with some water, and we're going to lay it down like this to help get the ink transferred onto our cardstock piece. Now bear in mind, this cardstock piece is, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a makeup brush, and we're going to bring in some vintage photo. And we're going to put the vintage photo in the areas that didn't get swinked, or basically if your stencil is the positive, then the holes that are not your stencil would be the negative space. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to brush this ink into our negative space. And again, you could totally do this technique with larger sized stamp pads. It's just, these are the colors I wanted to work with, and I only happen to have the cubes as far as the distress inks go. Okay, so now we have placed our vintage photo in the negative space, and that is what our piece looks like. So what we could do is we could swink our stencil once again to try to place a little more ink onto our card front. But for right now, what we're going to do is bring in some kitchen towel, and we're going to clean this area up. And now we're going to clean our stencil. So for that, we're going to bring back in our soldering mat, and we're just going to clean the stencil off using the kitchen towel. Now, what we can do is we can swink this piece again, and we can place it back on our card front. So let's do that. Let's do a little more swinking. Okay, so same as before, what we did was we spritzed it, so we're going to have to spritz it again to get this ink onto our card front. So there's our card front, and we've got our stencil again. So we can just lay it down, and I'm trying to make sure that we lay it down in the exact same space. So for that, I'm actually standing up. I'm telling you because you obviously can't see me. So there you go. There's a little more left, so what we can do is we can just try to smoosh it down a little more. And now we can remove it, and I actually still like it. I don't even mind the white portions because, as I said, we're doing sort of a painted, distressed shiplap look for our wall. So all we need to do now is clean our stencil. And since I know you guys know how to clean your stencils, I'm not actually going to show that to you. So we're going to keep this piece of the Post-it label, and we're going to bring our soldering mat back in, and what we're going to do is we're going to dry up this cardstock piece that our Anya is printed on. We're going to use this heated tool, this heated craft tool, to help us dry our piece. And we just do that in order to make sure that we try to get our card front nice and straight again, because since it's not watercolor paper, we've actually managed to bend the piece of cardstock. And now we can just place our mask, our labeling tape, over our little Anya. And now what we can do is we can bring in some walnut stain to help us do some more swinking. So this is how we would do that. So there you go. We have swinked a little floor for our Anya to stand on. And now that we've done all that, we can now discard our labeling tape, and we can spritz water on our mask and try to help remove the swinked ink that we put on our cardstock. Then what we can do is bring in our Anya, and we're going to take our sweet little Anya and we're going to remove the mask that is over her body. Okay, so we got a little bit of the ink, of the wet ink, onto our Anya's clothes, which is fine since those are going to be fussy cut out for her. We're just hoping that her hair and her face and her arms didn't get the same thing. And you just need to be careful, so I would recommend removing the mask slowly off of your Anya. That way you're less likely to rip the cardstock. So we're not going to color over this Anya. We're going to set her aside, and we're going to color this Anya, and then we will fussy cut her out. So we don't actually need to color all of her because we are going to bring in those printed papers to help create her clothing. So we only need to color her skin and her hair. So I'm going to start off with her hair, and to start out we are bringing in a Copic marker in the color V06, which is lavender. And I'm going to color the lightest color basically all over. Now the good part is this, you don't have to worry about whether your hand happens to slip while you're coloring her because she's going to be fussy cut out. Okay, so there you go. And now what we're going to do is we are bringing in some Ohuhu markers to color in her hair some more, because I'd like to give it some highlights and lowlights and, you know, basically make it look more like hair. Okay, so first we're going to bring in the color 87. Now what we're going to do is, okay, so if this is her hair, and I'm just showing it to you on here so you get a little bit more of an idea, because this is just going to be simple. So this is her hair. What we're going to do is bring in the color 87, and we're going to kind of do that, kind of create some noise. That's kind of what I would call it. Yeah, some noise to help create the look of the hair. And we're not worrying about making sure that it's fully covered, because that's why we put in the lavender first. So that, because I like to have my images have a full set of hair, and I feel weird if they have some white space where they don't really need it. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. So now we are going to bring in the number 2 and do the same thing. Okay, so we've got some more of our shading, and I'm going to finish this out with number 85. Okay, so now her hair is looking really nice, at least I think it is. And now we're going to do the same thing, or a similar thing. This time we're going to do it with the skin pigment color. That's going to start off with a Copic in the color E00, which is Skin White. Okay, so that was E00, and it was a Copic. Okay, so the next color we're going to work with is this Shinhan Touch Twin in the color YR26. Okay, and now we are going to go in with the Touch Twin marker color, which is YR29, which is Barely Beige. And now we're going to finish that up with a Copic, which is E31, which is the color Brick Beige. And this is just going to be our shadow area. We're not going to use it for anything other than our shadow area. And now that's all of that we're doing as far as our coloring job. First, we're going to bring in our T-square because I want to be sure that we get this portion done before I move into any other areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring our T-square in, and we're going to bring our black Sharpie back in, but this time we're going to use the regular point of the Sharpie rather than the fine point. So the thing about this is now, since we know we're going to paper piece her body over this, we don't have to worry about drawing the line over her feet. So what we can do is we can draw some more lines in, and this helps to give the illusion of it being a wood floor. So there's our floor. We just need to take our little Anya, and we're going to put her onto some adhesive sheet. So we are going to place our Anya onto this little piece right here. So now we can just take our fussy cutting scissors and cut her out. So social distancing Anya, which is who she is still available on the Greeting Farm website, and it's under the digital images section. So what we're gonna do now is basically the same thing we're gonna do when it comes to her clothing. So we're gonna flip her over, and we're gonna bring that printer paper that we used to color her on top of, and we're going to bring that Sharpie back in. This time we're going to make sure that our Anya is facing the printer paper and that she is as flat as she can be. So we're going to hold her down with one of our hands. I'm right-handed, so I'm holding her down with my left, and we're going to sort of trace around her. What this does is, if you were taking a side view of your card rather than a front view, if we didn't do this, you would totally be able to see the white peeking through from the paper, so that way you would know for sure that she wasn't stamped or printed directly onto the sheet that is the rest of the card front. So that's why we do this. So there she goes, and what we need to do is remove the backing. And now we can just place her on top of herself, and she looks real cute right there. So now we just need to do the same thing with all of her clothes, which is much smaller and more minute. So I don't know that you guys need to see me do that, but if you do, I'm going to do it, and it might be sped up. First, we're going to take all of these prints that we have for her clothing, and we're going to figure out what we're going to use. I totally think we should use this white print for her shirt. Just kind of trim it out. as best as you can. I mean, we're going to go back over it and trim it much smaller in a minute, but yeah, you just take it and make sure that it's as nice and clean a cut as you can do. There we go. So that is her little t-shirt. It says, "We can do it." Now as far as her little belt goes, we're going to use this blue pattern right here. Okay, there you go. And now we just need to bring in our fabric remnant because I want her to be in some jeans. I want her to be in those jeans, those darker colored jeans. Fussy cut this piece now. So let me look and see how this fits. Yeah, there. And now we just need her little shoes. And she will be all ready. Now I'm going to go for these red boots right here. I just like them. So I don't know if you can tell, but this is a book print. This is book paper that got jelly printed, and actually all of the papers that I used for her outfit that were gel prints were also book paper. So I just happen to like to do that. But you could totally try this technique using patterned paper or even just regular colored cardstock. So yeah, you don't have to make your own paper. That's what I happen to use for mine today. Now she is almost completely dressed. So I just kind of wanted to show y'all that much like how you can stamp on a patterned paper or a gel print to create a card, you can do the same thing with those prints in your printer. So you'll have to let me know if you try that out. So now she is dressed, at least as far as the image goes, and so we're going to place this onto a card base. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bring in some tear tape to help place her onto the card base. I wanted to thank y'all for spending the time with me to watch as I created this card. I hope y'all stay safe, stay healthy, stay crafty. If you like what you saw, click the thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more from my channel, please click that subscribe button. Bye y'all.